The crystal flute shattered against the tiled floor of the villa's grand dining room, sending shards skittering like fleeing secrets across the sun-warmed terracotta. Mia's hand trembled as she stared at her father, his face a mask of unyielding granite, the words, "disowned," still echoing off the whitewashed walls of their family home in Andalusia. Amelia's grip tightened on her thigh under the tablecloth, a silent anchor in the storm that had just upended Mia's entire world, 30 years of blood and belonging, erased in a single, venomous toast. It was supposed to be a celebration, 30 years of her parents' marriage, a milestone etched in the golden hills of southern Spain where they'd fled corporate America 2 decades ago for olive groves and slower rhythms. Mia had flown in from New York, Amelia at her side, hearts buoyant with the fragile hope that love could bridge the chasm her family had dug. But as the last notes of the flamenco guitarist faded and her father rose, glass in hand, Mia felt the air thicken like the sirocco winds that swept the coast, hot, unrelenting, promising ruin. "Ladies and gentlemen," her father began, his voice carrying the clipped precision of a Boston boardroom, "even after all these years in exile, we gather tonight not just to toast endurance, but to honor the vows that built this life." His eyes, sharp as the serrated edges of a Jamon knife, skipped over Mia and landed on her brother, Ethan, who sat beaming with his wife and their 2 towhead toddlers. The table, laden with platters of gambas al ajillo, patatas bravas steaming in clay cazuelas, and bottles of Rioja that had been airing since noon, held a dozen guests, aunts, uncles, old expat friends from the American colony in Marbella. All eyes turned expectant. Mia shifted in her seat, the linen of her emerald sundress whispering against the cane-backed chair. At 28, she was the prodigal daughter, the one who traded the family's real estate empire for a life sketching architectural watercolors in Brooklyn. Amelia, 26 and luminous in a pale blue shift that matched the Mediterranean horizon visible through the arched windows, squeezed her hand again. They'd met 2 years ago at a queer art walk in Williamsburg, bonding over shared sketches of forgotten tenements. "This is it," Mia had whispered on the flight from Madrid, "the moment we show them we're real." Amelia, ever the optimist with her Midwestern roots and a laugh like wind chimes, had believed her. Her mother stood then, elegant in a silk blouse the color of ripening figs, her silver-streaked hair pinned in a chignon that screamed old money. "To love," she said, her tone lilting with the faint trace of a Virginia drawl, the kind that weathers storms and builds legacies. The guests raised their glasses, murmurs of "here, here" rippling like applause. Mia lifted hers too, throat tight, tasting the effervescence of possibility. But her father wasn't done. He cleared his throat, a sound like gravel under tires, and fixed his gaze on Mia. "And to legacies," he continued, his words slicing cleaner now, "that endure beyond distractions." The pause hung, pregnant and poisonous. Mia's stomach plummeted. Distractions. The room stilled, even the toddlers sensed the shift, their chatter dying to whimpers. Amelia's thumb traced a soothing circle on Mia's palm, but Mia could feel the pulse of dread syncing with her own. They'd planned this meticulously, the casual introduction over aperitifs on the terrace, sunlight gilding the bougainvillea that cascaded over the stone balustrade, the easy anecdotes about their shared life, Mia's freelance gigs, Amelia's job curating exhibits at the Met. No grand declarations, just presence. Proof that love didn't need permission. "Distractions like the one our daughter has paraded here tonight," her father said, his voice dropping to a timbre that brooked no debate. Gasps rippled, subtle from the Spaniards, sharper from the Americans who'd known Mia as the girl who once won blue ribbons at the county fair back in Virginia. "We've given you everything, Mia Elizabeth Harper. Education. Opportunities. A name that opens doors from Seville to Manhattan. And this is how you repay us. By dragging your aberration into our home on our sacred day." The flute slipped from Mia's fingers then, the crash of thunderclap in the hush. Aberration. The word landed like a slap, hot and stinging, dredging up memories of locked doors and whispered prayers when she'd first come out at 18, fresh from college and fragile as sea glass. They'd prayed for her, her mother had said, sending her to therapists in Madrid who peddled conversion like cheap sangria. But Mia had built her life anyway, brick by watercolor brick, and Amelia was the mortar that held it fast. Dad, Mia started, her voice a rasp, but he barreled on, glass still aloft like a judge's gavel. Tonight, we reclaim our vows. To each other. To the family we've built without compromise. Mia, you are no longer welcome under this roof. No longer part of this legacy. Consider yourself disowned. The words detonated, splintering the air. Her mother averted her eyes, lips pressed thin, a single tear tracing the powder on her cheek, but no words of protest. Betrayal bloomed in Mia's chest, twin to the grief, not just from her father, but from the mother who'd once braided her hair with ribbons and whispered dreams of Paris. Ethan stared at his plate, jaw clenched, his silence a deeper cut. The guests shifted uncomfortably, forks tinkling like distant rain. Amelia rose first, her chair scraping like a protest, pulling Mia up with her. "We're leaving," she said, voice steady as the Strait of Gibraltar, though her blue eyes blazed with the fury of a girl who'd lost her own family to a car crash at 15 and vowed never to let love be stolen again. "Mia, grab your bag. We don't need this poison." Mia stood numb, the room spinning in a haze of candlelight and clove-scented air. The villa, with its cool courtyards and fountains that had lulled her to sleep as a child, now felt like a cage of thorns. How had it come to this? The flight over had been a dream, Amelia's head on her shoulder, the drone of engines mingling with stories of their future, a tiny apartment in Barcelona, perhaps, where Mia could paint the gaudy spires and Amelia cured hidden galleries. They'd laughed about the parents' inevitable thawing, trading barbs about her father's golf obsession and her mother's bridge club dramas. But reality was this, the toast that severed her like a umbilical cord snipped too soon. As they turned toward the arched doorway, the gravel path to the rental car crunching underfoot in the twilight, Mia heard her mother's voice crack from the table. "Mia! Wait!" She paused, heart a war drum. Amelia tugged gently, "Don't," but Mia couldn't not. Not yet. The courtyard lamps flickered on, casting the olive trees in ethereal silver, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Her mother stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the warm glow of the dining room, hands twisting the strand of pearls at her throat like a rosary. "Just talk to me," she pleaded, the words fracturing on the jasmine-scented breeze. Mia's resolve wavered. This was Eleanor Harper, the woman who'd taught her to ride a bike on the dusty roads of Rhonda, who'd smuggled contraband comics into her suitcase during those early expat years. But the silence behind her, Ethan's averted gaze, her father's retreating footsteps, hardened Mia's spine. "Talk." Mia echoed, the word bitter on her tongue. "You just let him erase me, Mom. In front of everyone. On your anniversary." Amelia hovered at her elbow, a quiet sentinel, her presence a balm against the raw edges of humiliation. The other guests milled awkwardly inside, murmurs rising like steam from cooling coffee, but no one followed. No rescues. Just the echo of that shattered glass. Eleanor's eyes, the same hazel as Mia's but dimmed by decades of deference, darted back toward the house. "It's not that simple, darling. Your father. He's set in his ways. The church group in Marbella, the community, they talk. And after the scandal with cousin Laura last year." She trailed off, invoking the family ghost, Laura, who divorced her husband for a woman and been shunned at Thanksgiving, her invitations now lost in the mail. Amelia's hand found Mia's again, fingers interlacing like roots seeking soil. "With all due respect, Mrs. Harper," she said, her voice a gentle Midwestern lilt edged with steel, "love isn't a scandal. It's not a phase or a distraction. Mia and I, we've built something real. And if your family can't see that, maybe it's time to build our own." The words hung there, brave and unadorned, and Mia felt a swell of gratitude so fierce it nearly buckled her knees. Amelia had always been the steady one, the girl who'd shown up at Mia's door with takeout after a bad critique at the gallery, who'd mapped their road trips across the Pyrenees with post-its labeled adventure and healing. In the chaos of that courtyard, with cicadas humming their nightly requiem, Mia realized this was the betrayal's sharpest sting, not just losing her parents, but risking the fragile bridge to Amelia under such fire. Eleanor reached out, her hand hovering like a bird unsure of landing. I love you, Mia. God knows I do. But this life we chose here, Spain, the villa, the vines, it's all we have left after your grandfather's fall from grace in '98. We can't afford more fractures. The confession spilled out, unbidden, the real estate crash that had stripped the Harpers of their Virginia estates, forcing the move abroad. The slow rebuild through her father's brokerage deals with British retirees. Pride, Mia understood now, wasn't just stubbornness, it was survival, armored in bigotry. But understanding didn't mend the tear. Then fight for me, Mia whispered, stepping closer, the gravel biting into her sandals. Just once. Tell him I'm your daughter, not a mistake. The plea cracked open old wounds, the summer she'd spent in Seville, sketching cathedrals while her parents attended family counseling, that was code for conversion seminars. She'd returned changed, walls up, but Amelia had scaled them with patience and shared sunsets over the Hudson. Eleanor's hand dropped. I can't. The words were a gut punch, softer than her father's but no less lethal. Behind her, Ethan's silhouette appeared, his broad shoulders tense. Sis, he called, voice low, come back in. We can fix this quietly. Fix this. As if she were a leaky faucet, not a woman loving fiercely. Mia's laugh was hollow, echoing off the stucco walls. Quietly. Like you did when you married Sarah without telling me about the prenup. Or when you forgot to invite me to the twins' baptism because the priest might disapprove. Betrayal layered upon betrayal, Ethan, her once confidant, the brother who'd shared contraband beers under the stars, now complicit in the charade. He winced, rubbing his neck. It's not like that. Dad's health, the stress. Save it, Amelia cut in, her arms slipping around Mia's waist, a shield of warmth. We're done here. They turned toward the Peugeot, its headlights cutting twin beams through the dusk, the engine purring to life like a reluctant confession. As they pulled away, the villa shrinking in the rear view, its lanterns winking like fallen stars, Mia pressed her forehead to the cool glass, tears carving silent paths down her cheeks. The drive to Malaga was a blur of winding coastal roads, the sea a black mirror under a crescent moon. Amelia drove, one hand on the wheel, the other tracing idle patterns on Mia's knee. I'm sorry, Mia murmured after the first hour, the words thick with salt. I thought. I don't know. That they'd see you. See us. Amelia glanced over, her profile sharp against the dashboard glow. Hey. This isn't on you. Families are messy, but love. That's the cleanest thing I've got. She pulled over at a mirador overlooking the waves crashing on pebbled shores, the air thick with brine and pine. They stepped out, the night enveloping them like a shawl, and Amelia pulled her into an embrace that smelled of citrus and resolve. Under the stars, with the distant lights of freighters blinking like fireflies, they talked, not of the wreckage, but of the salvage. Remember that trip to the Alhambra? Amelia said, her breath warm against Mia's temple. How the tiles shifted colors with the light. That's us. We adapt. We glow brighter in the breaks. Mia nodded, the ache easing into something navigable. But as they drove on, checking into a modest posada in the old town, white walls, iron balconies dripping with geraniums, the doubt crept back. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Dad's in the study. Mom's crying. Come back. Please. She deleted it, but the pull lingered, a tether frayed but not fully snapped. The next morning dawned crisp, the Mediterranean sun gilding the narrow streets as they wandered the Alcazabas gardens, seeking solace in history's embrace. Mia sketched the archways, charcoal flying across the page, while Amelia read aloud from a dog-eared guidebook about Moorish poets who loved in whispers. It was a balm, this ritual of creation, but the undercurrent thrummed, the anniversary guests would scatter today, carrying whispers of the Harper implosion like souvenirs. By noon, as they lunched on fresh sardines at a harborside cafe, Ethan's call came. He's had a turn, he said, voice clipped. The doctor, heart flutters. Mom's a wreck. Mia, he won't say it, but he needs you. Guilt twisted like a knife. Was this manipulation, or genuine fracture? Amelia watched her, eyes searching. Go if you have to. But not alone. I'm with you. The return to the villa was a descent into purgatory. The gravel drive seemed longer now, lined with cypress sentinels. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of cooling espresso and unspoken recriminations. Her father lay in the master suite, propped on pillows, his face ashen against the embroidered linens. A local doctor, summoned from Torremolinos, murmured about stress and prescriptions, then departed with a sympathetic nod. Eleanor hovered, eyes red-rimmed. Thank God you're here. But her father's gaze, when it met Mia's, held no warmth, only a grudging acknowledgement. Didn't think you'd show, he grunted, waving off the water she offered. Amelia lingered in the hall, a quiet force, until Eleanor drew her aside. Whispers followed, polite inquiries about her family, her work, but laced with the subtext of assessment. Mia caught fragments, such a nice girl. But really, Mia, have you thought about? The interruption came like a flare, her father's voice, weak but insistent. Enough. She's not staying. The room fractured anew. Mia's pulse roared. I'm your daughter, Dad. Not a choice on a ballot. Amelia stepped forward, hand on her shoulder. Mr. Harper, with respect, denying her doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you alone. His laugh was a wheeze, bitter as bile. Alone? I've got my wife. My son. A legacy that lasts. But his eyes flickered, to the photo on the nightstand, Mia at 10, gap-toothed and grinning on a pony in the Virginia fields. The crack in the armor. As night fell, the villa's shadows lengthening like fingers, Mia and Amelia retreated to the guest casita, a separate wing with views of the Sierra. There, in the flicker of a single lamp, they mapped the hurt, the betrayal not just of words, but of silence. Ethan knew, Mia realized aloud, piecing it together. He must have tipped them off, about bringing you. That's why the cold shoulders started at lunch. Amelia nodded, pulling her close. Then we rise above it. Together. Their kiss was soft, a reaffirmation amid the ruins, lips meeting like puzzle pieces, hands cradling faces worn by the day's toll. No fire, just the quiet burn of endurance. But dawn brought the climax, a family council in the salon, sunlight slanting through fretwork screens like judgment's bars. Ethan arrived with Sarah, the twins in tow, their presence a buffer. We need to talk, he said, avoiding Mia's eyes. All of us. Her father entered last, steadier on his cane, Eleanor at his side. The air crackled. I've reflected, he began, voice gravelly. This changes nothing. But for your mother's sake, Mia, we'll allow visits. Discreetly. The concession was a crumb, not a feast. Mia's blood boiled. Discreetly. Like I'm some dirty secret. Amelia's hand steadied her, but the dam broke. You disowned me over a toast. Betrayed me in front of strangers. And now, because you're scared, you dangle scraps. Ethan interjected, face flushing. Sis, come on. He's trying. Trying. Mia whirled on him. You sold me out, Ethan. I know it. The way you grilled me about Amelia on the phone last week, is it serious? Like a threat assessment. He paled. I was protecting the family. Dad was already on edge about the anniversary. I thought if I warned you. Warned me. The room spun. Betrayal incarnate, her brother, the ally turned informant. Amelia rose, voice cutting through. This isn't protection. It's control. And Mia deserves better. The silence that followed was seismic. Her father sank into a chair, face crumpling, not in anger, but defeat. I built this empire from ashes, he murmured. Lost everything once. Can't lose you too. But this. It's against everything I believe. Eleanor's sob shattered it. Then believe in her, Robert. Our girl. She crossed to Mia, arms enveloping, the scent of Chanel and regret enveloping them both. I'm so sorry. I was weak. But I see it now, you too. The way she looks at you. Like you're her whole sky. Tears came then, hot and communal, the salon a confessional. Ethan stepped forward, contrite. Forgive me. I was scared. For all of us. Mia searched his face, the boy she'd idolized, now man enough to bend. Start by standing with me. No more whispers. He nodded, pulling her into a hug that smelled of aftershave and second chances. As the sun climbed, casting rainbows through the crystal chandelier, the family teetered on redemption's edge, fragile, but real. Yet the path to mending wasn't linear. It wound like the roads through the Sierra Nevada, full of switchbacks and hidden vistas. In the weeks that followed, Mia and Amelia lingered in Spain, renting a cottage in Frigiliana, a whitewashed village of Moorish alleys and jasmine arches, where the air hummed with possibility. Mia's sketches filled journals, not just facades, but faces, Amelia laughing over Espeto de Sardinas at a beachside chiringuito, her father's reluctant smile during a supervised lunch in Nerja. The calls home were tentative bridges. Eleanor's voice softened over the line, sharing recipes for gazpacho laced with her secret sherry, probing gently about Amelia's favorite books. She sounds like a keeper, she'd say, the words a quiet evolution. Robert was slower, his grunts evolving to questions. That exhibit she curates, any Van Gogh? Mia would laugh, surprised, and send photos of their walks along the Costa del Sol, waves lapping at cliffs like forgiving tongues. But betrayal's shadow lingered, especially in Ethan's silences. A visit to the villa for her mother's birthday revealed the fault lines. He arrived late, excuses tumbling about work, his eyes skimming Amelia like an afterthought. Over ensalada rusa, he pulled Mia aside in the herb garden, Rosemary brushing their arms. Dad's coming around, but the community's talking. Old Mr. Wilkins at the club. Stop, Mia said, clipping a sprig, the oils sharp on her fingers. Their talk isn't my cage. And yours isn't welcome anymore. He deflated, nodding, but the seed of doubt took root. Could trust regrow, or would it twist into resentment? Amelia sensed it, as she always did, drawing Mia to the rooftop terrace that night, where stars wheeled over the dark sea. You're carrying too much, she murmured, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the cooling air. Let me share the weight. In that intimacy, hands tracing collarbones, whispers weaving dreams of a life unbound by bloodlines, Mia found her center. Amelia wasn't just love, she was witness, the one who saw her fully, scars and sketches alike. The true climax crested a month later, during a storm that battered the coast like divine wrath. Mia's phone rang at midnight, Eleanor's voice a wire of panic. Your father's collapsed. The ambulance, it's bad. They raced through rain-slicked roads, wipers slashing like accusations, arriving at the clinic in Valles-Malaga as thunder growled overhead. Robert lay pale in the ER bay, monitors beeping a somber rhythm, Eleanor clutching his hand like a lifeline. Irregular heartbeat, the doctor explained in accented English, aggravated by stress. He needs rest. Family support. Mia's throat closed, this man, who'd wielded words like weapons, now fragile as the four-drip feeding his veins. He stirred as she approached, eyes fluttering open. Mia. Not a question, but an exhale. Amelia hung back, giving space, her presence a quiet vote of faith. Dad, she said, sinking into the chair, rain dripping from her coat. You scared us. A ghost of a smile. Had to get your attention. The humor was wry, laced with regret. That toast. Worst mistake of my life. Beside your mother, anyway. Eleanor squeezed his fingers, tears glistening. Mia leaned in, voice steady. It broke me. But I'm here. Because you're my father. Flaws and all. He nodded, throat working. And her. Amelia. She's my choice. My heart. If you can't love that, love me enough to try. The words were a gauntlet, thrown soft but sure. His gaze drifted to the doorway, where Amelia stood, rain-sheened and resolute. Come here, girl. She approached, cautious, and he extended a hand, trembling, but open. Thank you. For bringing my daughter back. It wasn't absolution, but a beginning. In the waiting room, as the storm abated to drizzle, Ethan arrived, soaked and sheepish. I drove like hell, he said, collapsing beside Mia. Called ahead, pulled strings with the doc. No excuses this time, just action. Over coffee from a vending machine, bitter and communal, they talked, really talked. I was jealous, Ethan admitted, stirring sugar he didn't take. You left for the big city, living free. I stayed, building Dad's shadow. Betraying you. It was me betraying myself. The confession cracked him open, revealing the boy who'd envied her wings. Mia touched his arm. Then fly with me. Invite us to the twins' next birthday. No discreet bullshit. He agreed, eyes bright, and for the first time, Amelia joined the circle, her stories of museum mishaps drawing laughs that echoed like healing rain. Recovery was a slow bloom. Robert returned home to bed rest, Mia and Amelia commuting from Frigiliana to cook meals, paella simmered with saffron and second chances, conversations over vino tinto that veered from politics to poetry. One evening, as cicadas chorused, he pulled out old photo albums, the Harper dynasty in sepia, Mia's childhood scrawled in crayon margins. You were always the artist, he said, tracing a faded snapshot. Saw beauty where I saw blueprints. Amelia, flipping pages beside him, smiled. She still does. In everything. By autumn, as the groves bent heavy with olives, the family gathered, not for an anniversary, but a harvest. The villa buzzed with rented hands and laughter, Ethan wrangling the twins through nets, Eleanor pressing oil from the first crush. Mia and Amelia worked side by side, sleeves rolled, hands stained gold. At dusk, as the sun dipped into the sea like a benediction, Robert raised a glass, not of champagne, but fresh-pressed oil in a clay cup. To legacies, he said, voice steady, eyes on Mia and Amelia entwined at the table's end. The ones we choose. And the ones that choose us. The toast landed soft, no shards this time. Mia met Amelia's gaze across the harvest glow, seeing the future etched there, a life of shared canvases and coastal drives, family not by blood alone, but by the brave act of forgiveness. In the quiet after, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Mia whispered to Amelia on the terrace, "You saved me. From them. From me." Amelia's kiss was a promise, light as sea foam. We saved each other. That's the real story. And in the hills of Andalusia, where olive roots delved deep and winds whispered of renewal, Mia believed it. Love, she'd learned, wasn't a distraction, but the truest legacy of all. Human, flawed, enduring. A bridge not burned, but built anew.